Today on Newweek, the counties are signaling at a shutdown as the push and pull on the division of revenue bill intensifies.
But beyond 16th of September 2019, if this matter is not resolved, we have resolved here that we will have no option but to shut down all the counties.
This even as the country's top court insists on mediation.
The Speaker of the Senate shall appoint the Senate's members to the mediation committee as required by Article 113 of the Constitution. Number 2, thereafter the houses, both houses, shall undertake the constitutional mandate under Article 113 and report to this court as soon as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to take the 30 days that are there in the Constitution. The Constitution reads within 30 days. You can finish that within a very short while, and you report it to this court as soon as possible.
And on Newweek, we ask, what will it take to solve the crisis of the two houses in the same premises that agree on little more than visibly their mutual dislike? A very good morning to you and welcome to Newweek. I am Abubakar Abdullahi. Thank you for choosing to stay with us here on TV47. Be part of this discussion. Tweet us at TV47KE. The hashtag to use is TV47 Newweek. My guests in studio to my immediate right is Ben Mulwa, a governance expert, and Kevin Osido, a governance expert equally. Gentlemen, many thanks for making time for us this morning.
Thank you and good morning.
Is there a crisis, or is it a crisis generated by we the media? Often that is a phrase that is echoed at.
Thank you, and once again, good morning, and I'm happy to be here this morning. In my view, you realize it is not the first time the country is finding itself in this kind of a quagmire, whereby there seems to be push and pull, especially between parliamentarians, that is members of the Senate and members of the National Assembly. And in my view, this particular crisis seems to be deliberate in my view, because 7 years down the line since we had devolution taking over, these are very minute things that could have been resolved a long time ago. Again, it points to something very interesting, a theory that is coming to the fore. When you listen to the stand that has been consistently taken by the majority leader, Aden Duale, and even the president's decision to wade into the mire, points out to a situation whereby we have a broke government. That's the bottom line. The government is broke. So actually it is a deliberate effort by the National Treasury. They have been able to buy themselves 2 months at the expense of critical services at the counties that are completely grinding to a halt, and unnecessary theatrics that we are being treated by parliamentarians. Because if we critically interrogate, the amount that we are haggling over, about 10 or 15 billion shillings, is not really anything that is worth the time that Parliament has spent on.
Ben, if you put it as a deliberate crisis, created an innovative one, in fact, from which side would you sum it up?
It is the government behind this. That's why they are pushing. That's why they are pushing the National Assembly to maintain that position, and because the governors actually have justified as to why the amount they are demanding is what they need to be received this financial year. So it has actually given the government reprieve. They have bought themselves so far 2 months.
Fair enough. Let me bring Kevin to the discussion. Is it a battle of egos from two houses that we are seeing at the expense of the taxpayer?
Abu, thank you for this opportunity. There are two sides to this. There is a political end of it, and there is a technical perspective. The technical perspective is what the Council of Governors has chosen to pick, which in fact, in a number of meetings, which I've personally attended by virtue of serving at the County Governance Watch, together with other civil society players who are in leadership and governance, we have a feeling that the politics, which is then now, which the side which probably the national government has picked, is calculatively being played to not only undermine devolution, but to stifle service delivery at the county level. And you note that this 6 years down the line, 2013 to 2019 is 6 years, and we've had devolution, and every financial year we have all these challenges that keep coming up. And this is just the of that way of looking at it, because then services are not being delivered. But from 014 to 015, 016, we had the inert bit of it, which was policies that were being put in place, directives that were being put in place without effective and proper consultation, both between the national government and the county governments. And you note that in terms of supporting devolution, we also have other institutions that are supposed to be meeting and ensuring that they have consultations, discussions, and dialogue to ensure that devolution is properly supported. And those include the IBEC, Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, which is chaired by His Excellency the Deputy President. We had the summit, which is chaired by His Excellency the President and co-chaired by the Chair of the Council of Governors. And if you were to look at the progressive nature in which these institutions have discharged their mandate, then really the analysis is that there is one arm which is not interested in devolution. But the unfortunate thing is that history will judge them very harshly, because this constitution supports devolution, and you cannot affect or purport to interfere with devolution. Why? Because it is in the constitution, and it will cost a referendum to change anything. So all these politics which we are seeing against DORA, we call it DORA, Division of Revenue Allocation Bill, is really, in my view, a way to more or less undermine and also to waste time.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. And just to set the pace for this discussion, the importance of the revenue bill is that only when it's enacted, that is when the counties can prepare their budgets and appropriation bills, which authorities withdraw from at the county levels. There has been questions, and this largely was from the National Assembly, that we are giving you money, use what you already have. Show us the work of the amount that we have already given you. Is that enough to solid the governance?
As I indicated, Abdullah, from the outset, you'll agree with me that what we are being treated to are theatrics, because it is extremely hypocritical of the National Assembly to come to Kenyans and start asking, we gave you this money and you never accounted for it. There is a very clear accountability structure that is established by the Constitution on how counties are supposed to utilize their funds and how counties are supposed to account for whatever they receive. What the National Assembly is not telling Kenyans is that we have consistently also over the same period of time received Auditor General's report that have continued to unearth the rot in the national government. The National Assembly is specifically tasked with auditing or oversighting the national government.
And to the flip side of that, we also had reports of counties mismanaging the funds that they have already been allocated.
That's on the one part, but you know, my preference would be for every institution to stick to what they are supposed to be focusing on. When they continue insisting on that, they have not come back to us and told us that they slashed the budget of, say, the Ministry of Interior from the 400 billion we currently have to this much because there has been mismanagement, because there has been. They have not come to us and told us we have slashed this much from health. We have scandals in the Ministry of Health, from the containers to many other things. So it is extremely hypocritical. And as I indicated, actually, the National Assembly has agreed to be used as a stooge or as a puppet by the government. That's why I found the remarks by the President wading into the debate extremely unfortunate. It is none of the business of the President under whatsoever law to decide how much should be allocated. When he starts intimidating governors and telling them that mchukue ile tuko nayo because hakuna ingine iko, the president does not have a separate set of taxpayers that contribute to his kitty so that he can be dishing out to anybody at his own will. There are laws. The same taxpayers who pay taxes from Turkana to Lamu to Nairobi to every other county are the same taxpayers that the president depends on to run his government. So he must be able to respect the constitution that he sought to uphold by ensuring that institutional frameworks are respected and adhered to.
Kevin, in an ideal world, if this amount that the governors wants was to be passed to a Kenyan who will be wondering probably, how will it impact them?
We cannot run away from the fact that devolution has changed and transformed this country. In fact, I didn't know that that would come up. I would have carried an analysis of what we have done on resources to counties from 2013 to where we are at right now. The degree of transformation that devolution has actually meted onto Kenyans, and the stories of devolution that Kenyans keep saying. But having said that, we of course cannot run away from the fact that there are resources that have been lost, both at the national level and also at the county governments. And really what that means is, and I want to tie this to the president's war on graft, which of course I am a proponent of, and I like the political goodwill that now we have, at least for the first time, that the Kenya One, or the most Kenyan person who is His Excellency the President, has taken the mantle to rally Kenyans around the war on corruption. However, that war has to be seen to be looked at in whole, so that then it is not a narrative that is supposed to carry the stifling of resources against county governments. You know, the president is not a president for national government, and of course,
the governors being the presidents of the county.
Exactly. So they are both leaders for all Kenyans. So what this therefore means is, in my view, there has to be a deliberate effort to underscore where the gaps are, the missteps that we have taken, because the president has a legacy, in my view, to protect. And so whether we say that resources are being taken to counties, which is basically the narrative that National Assembly members are looking at, they're saying, why are you asking for more resources? We send you money to the counties, we can't see what it is touching, and look at the introduction of CDF and the discussions around Constituency Development Fund. We cannot take a single second to compare what CDF is doing against what devolved funds is supposed to be doing.
Fair enough, and at the heart of the resistance to increase the budgetary allocation to the counties is the question that you partly mentioned of, that why allocate more if at all we can't see the few that we have allocated you to. Shouldn't that be a guiding question for accountability purposes?
It shouldn't be, in my view. Why? Because remember, it shouldn't be, because we have an entire commission called the Commission on Revenue Allocation, whose mandate by constitution is to ensure that resources are allocated, and they have a formula, and National Treasury is supposed to borrow from what CRA has recommended, and that is what Council of Governors are saying, that why don't you look at what has been proposed by CRA, because CRA looks at about 9 indicators, and some of these indicators include which counties benefit from equalization fund, which counties are supposed to, including ways in which counties are supposed to generate their own source, their own resources, which is called the own source revenue. It's really a two-way, so much such that as much as we are pushing for National Treasury to do its work, counties must also be seen to be doing their work, which is 1, service delivery. 2, show us what you are doing to generate resources from wherever, artifacts.
And in your own opinion, Kevin, do you think the amount that has been allocated during the subsequent years is paying off in as far as having a trickle-down effect is concerned?
It is, but it's not as much as what Kenyans expected. Why? Because for the last 6 years, Treasury has continued to really stifle, if I could say that again, resources. And in fact, if you listen to the chair of the Council of Governors, he keeps saying, why do we always have to have a dispute every time it comes to a financial year on resources that are supposed to go to county governments?
Fair enough, often that is a dispute. Ben, in April this year, we witnessed the loggerheadness of the two houses coming to the front. For instance, the two houses have been at loggerheads. The senators threatened to challenge the legality of 26 laws.
Yes. Well, that were passed by the
that were passed by the National Assembly. And the question of the big man syndrome, who is bigger than the other, has been in the limelight as far as this discussion is concerned. Do you think that the big man syndrome, the attitude of you being belittled, one house belittling the other, is affecting the mediation as well?
Yes, it is actually. It is prominently playing out, which I think is very unfortunate, because I wish to go back to a particular unfortunate term that the majority leader once used against the former Bomet governor, Isaac Ruto, when he asked him, kwani pesa ni ya mama yako? It is the same attitude that the National Assembly has continued to display even in the mediation process. Because
it's a very controversial statement, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. It was very unfortunate actually coming from a top leadership in this country, because what we are witnessing by and large is also a supremacy contest that is actually hurting Kenyans. What these members of the National Assembly forget is that devolution has, despite the teething challenges, devolution has achieved so much in the last couple of years. For the first time in 2014, I remember when a hospital in Mandera conducted the first cesarean birth. That was the first time since independence, almost 60 years after independence. This was only enabled because now we have healthcare reaching out to corners of this country that never happened under the national government. We have seen now what bothers also people, or what I call the gatekeepers at the national level, is previously, for you to receive development even in Lamu or in Makueni, one, you had to keep singing the song of the government of the day. That devolution actually does not allow that. Whether the governor likes the ruling party or does not, or whether he supports it or not, they are guaranteed to be allocated their resources. And that really has transformed. We have seen very many roads and very many small markets and many other activities happening that would never have been imagined. So this supremacy contest is, I find it a bit selfish, especially coming from the National Assembly, because the same constituents, all of them don't come from State House or Nairobi. They come from these areas where these resources are supposed to be allocated. And it is unfortunate that they have continued, like for 2 months now, we are grinding to a halt critical services like healthcare. There are many other activities that the counties, even projects that were ongoing now, they have been stalled for the last 3 months. These are the projects, these are the same roads these MPs and senators still use when they go back to their villages. So in my view, this is somebody who is trying to run with their both of their shoelaces tied together. So they are the ones actually who will eventually fall. And we must also be able to set the proper precedent, because we have seen cases of some of these members of the National Assembly, even the Senate, aspiring or even running to become governors. Would they want to eventually to find themselves in that kind of a situation when, if they succeed to become governors? You know, this idea of being so myopic in terms of addressing critical national issues is very wanting, because it is not serving anybody, believe you me, as it is.
Fair enough. Yes. Kevin, at the heart of the standoff is the allocation of funds. The National Assembly wants the 47 counties to be given 316 billion shillings. The senators want the counties to be given 227 billion shillings. The governors say to effectively discharge their roles, they need 335 billion shillings. There are those who read more than just the amounts that is being flying around, that there is an inner-hand politics to the disagreements. Do you, as a governance expert, read in the same lines?
You see, the beauty about this is that the Council of Governors has been very consistent. And in their consistency, they have chosen to follow the law, from what I have seen and from what the analysis we have done. Now, the numbers that are being put out there have a foundation. And one of that is supposed to be the last annual audited reports. Unfortunately for Kenya today, we have a serious crisis, because we find ourselves in a situation where we are reading a budget for the past 3 years. In fact, the budget ratings that we are using today are for the audited accounts 2016-2017. Whereas the allocations that were done by both National Treasury and KRA were for 2018-2019. So there is a very clear gap on that. That's the first thing. The second thing is Commission on Revenue Allocation. They are not people who are not going to make recommendations to Treasury based on a vacuum. There are certain legal foundations that of course they are looking at, and that is why all these things are ending up to the National Assembly and also to the to the Senate, which is where therefore the budget committees of both houses are supposed to generate what is called the appropriations bill, which is supposed to be used by Treasury to ensure that resources are put out there. Now, all these three people cannot be wrong. If one of them is wrong, two of them should be right. If two of them are wrong, one of them should be.
You're ruling out the probability of the three of them being wrong at the same time.
No, it is not possible.
It's not possible. Like the three of us on an issue, whether it's a debate on whether this is black or red, at least one of us will have to be right. And that is why it is important for us to follow through the advisory which the Supreme Court, in my view, made, which is go back and sit and listen to what each and every one of you has to say. But remember that all those two attempts to have a dialogue has failed. Why? Because I think I like what Ben has said, which is really the political way of looking at it. That one, you have people who want to be governors in the name of senators. You have people who want to be senators in the names of National Assembly members. And of course, you also have scenarios that are being played at the grassroots on where funds are, what actually funds are doing, which is really the corruption narrative which is going out there. In fact, The Auditor General gave us a very good analysis of reports on what amount of monies have gone to counties and have gotten lost. That is a discussion, in my view, that should not be left at that particular point. It's actually the role of the National Assembly to ensure that the people who are mentioned, whether it's a governor or it's whoever it is, are summoned and that they are able to make clean their templates. Until when we will stop doing that, then we will continue to see, because each of these people know each other. They are protecting themselves at the expense of the citizens. But wajua ya kwa Waswahili wasema, fali wawili wakipigana ni nyasi ndio. So it is going to be unfair for the parliamentarians and His Excellency the President on all these other institutions to wait until services ground at the county levels for us to begin asking, what exactly are we doing?
Which is partly what the governors in their latest statement as the Council of Governors said, that on the 16th of this month, should this not be solved, they promised of a shutdown, which will paralyze all the functions in the state. Still on the question of allocation of resources, there has been the narrative that some counties with less population are being allocated more money than counties that collect more in revenue, that we are getting this cake, but this cake is being given to a larger section than us, we the bakers. The baker is not consuming, it's others who are consuming. I wonder how much of that attitude is being of significance to the stand of the
I want to believe, Abubakar, that such arguments are peddled by people who are extremely ignorant. We have to agree, marginalization in this country was not a theory, was not a myth. It is real. There are parts of this country that had been left out of development completely for close to half a century. Those are realities. There are parts of this country you go. I remember a long time ago when I was in primary school and I happened to be boarding a bus at Kitale. And there were individuals who were also traveling on the same bus to Nairobi. And they kept repeating that mimi natoka Turkana naenda Kenya. Because, and we have had cases also of certain parts of the northeastern Kenya that have been left out for a long time, that they do not even know the existence of government. So we cannot now sit here and say that because Nairobi County generates 60% of the national GDP, and Nairobi County on their own, they are able to raise every year in excess of 10 billion shillings, that we should allocate maybe 100 million shillings to Turkana, which is hardly contributing anything, and allocate everything to Nairobi. That would be actually defeatist against the entire concept and the entire principle of devolution. So in my view, these are arguments that again are very technical, as Kevin is putting it. These are very basic things that can easily be agreed, even within the same houses. Why do
but in the public gallery, Ben, isn't it those arguments that are largely highlighted?
Yes, but you realize there hasn't been a particular case or a specific case whereby, like the Nairobi governor has indicated that I am completely unable to do this because I'm getting little allocation, while Turkana or Lamu is receiving more than they deserve. I have not seen a case whereby Kiambu has failed to either equip their hospitals or undertake road constructions or similar projects because there is more money that went to Kajiado that was not necessary. So in my view, the
last time the comparisons that were drawn were between Kiambu, for instance, and Mandera. That Mandera was getting more than Kiambu, which has more population than Kiambu.
You see, Abu, that discussion is a lame one.
Yes, absolutely.
Because CRA, and I like this because these are institutions that are were actually put in law to safeguard and protect devolution. We cannot really want to come out there and begin to say that we are proponents of devolution and we are going to run it our own way. There is a way in which the drafters of our constitution were able to capture the minds, the interests, the dreams, and the imagery stories of Kenyans, and they put it in our constitution, and they said, for us to be able to allocate resources, this is how we are going to do it. Now, one of the indicators that CRA actually uses to be able to ensure who gets what is population. Number two, which just came up the other day, I think it was towards the mid or end last year, was the manner in which you are fiducious enough to use your resources. So that if you have been given 200 shillings and you have shown that actually 200 shillings we've been able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and we now expect to do 4, 5, 6, and we are short of this amount of resources, then CRA will give you an opportunity to make that recommendation, which then goes to Treasury. In fact, we cannot begin to even compare counties because they are unique in their own way. At county governance, which is where I serve, we have a tool which is called the County Governance Index, which assesses levels of service delivery for health, water, education, agriculture, and infrastructure. But there is no single day we have compared like Machakos and Makueni, or Turkana and Bomet, or Siaya and Kisumu, because all these counties are unique in their own way in nature.
And when such narratives then are fronted, that in some counties, these budgetary allocations are made for trees, for instance, as they say, and which has been, to be honest, in the public limelight, that some counties are getting more with less people, hence this money is going to trees and other things that are not significant.
It is unfortunate because, for instance, if you go to Tana River County is the size of almost half of the 47 counties.
Yeah, true.
But Tana River County has a population of about 244,000 people. Tana River County receives a budget of almost, I don't think it's more than 10 billion shillings. But if you went to that particular county against the amount of resources that Nairobi County is receiving, or Nakuru County, or even Mombasa County, call them the municipalities and the urban areas and cities, you still cannot look at 3 million people against 240,000. But even against the resources, why? Because look at the movement between, for example, Malindi to Hola. Before devolution, that is Tana River County. Before devolution, that was just a forest. So much so that people had to invest in security, where you have to hire security officers, feed in military, Kenya Defense Forces, for you to get a vehicle which would only move once a week, a bus at night, you know, with the security that has been hired. People had to buy food and water to carry because it's a journey that would not take you less than what it is taking people today because of devolution. Come to a distance between Nairobi and Nakuru is 1 hour drive. And then look at the resources that have been allocated to these particular counties. So why I'm trying to bring out this kind of comparison is because we need to look at counties in their own uniqueness. That's one. Two, then we begin to look at the resources that are taken to the counties. What are they doing? Why? Because even the needs and necessities of the people in those particular counties vary.
Fair enough, Kevin, and we will talk of whether that amount, the allocated amounts, is having a trickle-down effect. Before the Supreme Court gave its advisory opinion calling for the mediation, the Law Society of Kenya tried. On the day the Law Society was attempting to front the mediation between the two houses, it's only the National Assembly Speaker, Muturi, no, it's Kenneth Lusaka who attended that meeting. Muturi failed to show up. That mediation, of course, died before arrival. Understanding the mutual disagreements of the house, of the houses, how much is that as well an impact to the standoff?
Actually, those are some of the things that come to the fore in terms of the attitudes that have been developed by leaders who are supposed to be providing leadership, but actually they end up being stumbling blocks. Because again, at the end of the day, besides the legalities and besides the technicalities and the mathematics, we need also goodwill, which is entirely lacking in this whole process. We have seen, like in the current financial year, for example, we are working with in excess of close to 400 billion shillings that have tentatively been allocated to defense and interior and similar ministries. We have a provision of a whole 10 billion shillings to go to BBI, which still remains a very opaque process to 99% of Kenyans.
I don't know where that figure is coming from, but still continue, Ben.
No, actually, because when you look at the actual parameters within which such an amorphous outfit is operating, which has no basis or any anchorage in law, then you realize we have a way of getting our priorities upside down. On the flip side here, we have the National Assembly stuck at 316 billion shillings. I don't know whether Parliament would melt into the ground if they ceded ground, and because the Senate is pushing for 327 and the Council of Governors is stuck at 335. Finding a middle ground, I don't think would really require a miracle. In fact, in my view, this is a discussion that would take less time than what we have spent here in studio so far. But what is completely lacking, believe you me, is just goodwill, because we have individuals who are refusing to agree that at the end of the day, they serve Kenyans. They are not there to gratify their ego or to satisfy their political standpoints, but actually to serve the people of this country.
And
it is very possible, like the National Assembly would have come up and told us, we have proposed allocations of this and this and this nature, which we think we can slash. We have continuously seen funny institutions like the NYS receiving up to 25 billion shillings. What is so difficult about increasing maybe an extra 5 or 10 billion shillings to counties so that Wanjiku on the ground can continue receiving medication, can continue receiving basic services, and the county workers can also receive their salaries on time.
And Ben, when you say the compromise is not forthcoming, this is from both sides or one side?
It is actually the primary problem here we have is the National Assembly, which is on the one hand insisting on overstepping its mandate. The Constitution is extremely clear, as Kevin has insisted. There are institutions established by the Constitution and also frameworks that are in place to guide these processes. So the National Assembly cannot begin to play like they're the ones who own this country. They're just part of the larger institutional framework that governs this country.
Kevin, if the tough stance continues and the governors seemingly won't get the way and what they want, won't it not be fair as well for them equally to compromise? If the push is that Parliament hears what the governors are saying, shouldn't there be a reverse of that to the governors as well?
I'm sure that there's going to be a way out of this, and that way we'll have to take the evokement of His Excellency the President, because look at this gentleman. He's one who is serving his second and last term. He's a gentleman who has come up and said, I have 4 big agenda items that I believe will form my legacy for the people of Kenya. And to His Excellency the President, that legacy is not going to be one that is going to be fulfilled on rocks and mountains and forests. It's going to be fulfilled, one that is going to be measured by the lives that will be able to impact, and those lives will be the lives of Kenyans. So devolution will have to, His Excellency the President will have to come up and really ensure that these two gentlemen sit with him. And this hard talk about use what you have, I think there are people who are probably misadvising His Excellency the President, because universal healthcare is not going to be on use what you already have. Manufacturing is not going to be on use what you've already had. You know, food security, and in 2019, when President Uhuru Kenyatta is a president of the Republic of Kenya, people are still dying out of hunger. You know, it's not going to be on use what you already have. We must be sober-minded. We must arise to the occasion and become as honorable as our first titles, for those who are called honorable members, are, and really find a way out of this. We cannot sit and look and look at a scenario or a situation where Kenyans are going to, in the next 1 week, 16th of September, services are going to be grounded on the counties. National government and county government, all the other ministries, departments, and agencies will have to be grounded. And if we want to have a scenario where Kenyans are going to be demonstrating for services to be delivered, we really cannot get to that point. It has to be the responsibility of the national government and county governments to agree by the institutions that have been put forward by this great constitution to ensure that Kenyans receive and get services.
Fair enough, and we will talk of the role of the executive. Deputy President William Ruto is the chair of the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, IBEC. Why not him? Why not the president? We'll talk about that, but my director on my ear is telling me it's time for us to take a short break here on Newweek. We'll be back with this and much more after this break.
Equip Africa College is a TVET institution accredited by the Ministry of Education and relevant professional regulatory bodies. The college, located in Kitale, is a center of excellence in healthcare training in the region. We have state-of-the-art training facilities, conducive learning environment, hostels, and highly qualified trainers. Apply now for diploma or certificate in nursing, clinical medicine, nutrition and dietetics, medical laboratory sciences, business management, procurement, marketing, and many more. For inquiries, visit our main campus next to Kitale Museum or our Nairobi office along Moi Avenue, Union Towers, 5th floor. Equip Africa College, empowering generations through quality training.
Welcome back to Newweek, and in case you are joining us now, thank you for choosing to stay with us and to join us here on TV47. Remember, you can be part of this discussion. Tweet us at TV47. The hashtag to use is TV47 Newweek. My guests, just a reminder, to my immediate right is Ben Mulwa, a governance expert, and Kevin Osido, who is also and equally a governance expert. Before we went for a break, we were talking of the role of the executive in possibly solving this crisis. If the Deputy President chairs the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, and he is deputy to the President, who has publicly, through the media or otherwise, shown his interest in leaving a legacy, why is the executive taking long to solve this crisis?
In my view, number one, we have to agree this is not a problem of the executive. So the drafters of the 2010 Constitution were trying to migrate Kenya from the culture whereby everything and every activity that happened in this country revolved around the president to institutions. Unfortunately, we still have individuals in government, particularly at the national level, the ones I told you, the national gatekeepers, who are still stuck in the Kenya of 1969 or 1977. They have completely refused to migrate. They still anticipate or still look forward to scenarios whereby leaders from every corner of this country must come begging to the head of state for them to get favors. Allocating resources to the county governments is not a favor. As I indicated again, we have very elaborate institutional frameworks to guide this process. So it is entirely not even the business of the president to decide how much goes to which institution, including even the national government.
Fair enough, whereas it is not his duty.
Yes.
He, as the president of the country, he, as the leader of a party that has produced the two House leaders, surely must have a say, is it?
Absolutely, but now where he comes in is actually to read the Riot Act to these two individuals to be able to conclude this matter within the shortest time possible, because as they paralyze counties, they're actually paralyzing Kenya, which he heads. So that's the only involvement he can come into. And as I indicated, actually, when we continue insisting on, like the question you were asking Kevin earlier, why should it be like the National Assembly seating? So far, the governors and even the Senate has demonstrated willingness to come down on what they have. But the National Assembly has not even moved an inch. So it is demonstration of lack of goodwill. I wish they would have come up with a proposal, said, okay, initially we're insisting on 316. Let's move it to 320, even 4 billion. But there has not been any demonstration of the same. It is pure arrogance. You've seen even the sessions that, the mediation sessions that we have witnessed, whereby they even end up in chaos. And you wonder, why should people actually even subject themselves to a scenario where they have to begin fighting over what does not even belong to them. They are just custodians. They are just supposed to guide the process so that there is an amicable solution to the entire
Kevin, notwithstanding the independency of the allocation of resources, does the executive have a role in calming the situation?
Definitely, yes. In fact, we began the conversation and we spoke about two institutions, actually among several others, the IBEC, Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, which has actually held very many meetings. And the first meeting,
which is chaired by the Deputy
President.
President?
And the first meeting, which I think yielded some fruits, was a meeting where the Deputy President gave the advisory to National Treasury to cede some resources to county governments. And immediately you note that the Council of Governors came up and said, the monies that you actually are talking about will go into paying loans and services that have already been discharged but have not been paid. And there are quite a number of, contractors on the ground who are waiting for their monies, and several services, including even salaries to county government officials, some of whom have been, constantly threatening to go on strike, like our healthcare service providers. Now, so indeed, therefore, the executive, by virtue of whoever it is, has the responsibility and have a role. But I know that in your question, you're referring to whether the president and his deputy have a responsibility, because Treasury is also part of the executive, because the executive is the entire cabinet, where now the cabinet secretary in charge of Treasury is also seated. But in saying that, so then is to move on and say that as much as the DP chairs IBEC, they have held their conversations. The summit, which is chaired by His Excellency the President, now needs to, in my view, be convened so that then we have a conversation around what really is the challenge. And what we have seen happening in this country is anywhere where His Excellency the President goes to, everybody wants to flock there. I am sure that if His Excellency the President, by virtue of protecting his legacy and being the President, as is given the role and the responsibility by Article 131 of our Constitution, when he says, I want to meet with the Council of Governors, Majority Leader, National Assembly will be there. Speaker, National Assembly will be there. Minority leaders will be there. All these people, including head of AU infrastructure, the former Prime Minister, will also be present.
And must it take that the President convenes a meeting to convince these people?
It doesn't.
That
it doesn't have to. In my view, it doesn't have to. And that is why initially we spoke about gaps in the Constitution, because I'm sure that the drafters of our very beautiful Constitution they never foresaw a scenario where the Senate and National Assembly would never agree on DORA, Division of Revenue Allocation. But now this has continuously been happening. What then are the lessons that we are learning, and how can we be able to circumvent or actually deal with the issue? But it doesn't have to really take His Excellency the President to be able to do that. We need to be able to, as institutions, just respect what is our responsibility and follow them. National Assembly, respect what is your mandate and follow it. Senate, respect what is your mandate and follow it. And if there are serious scenarios like a stalemate, like what we have right now, all of us are Kenyans, and really Kenya is our business. Why would senators want to look inferior and National Assembly want to look superior, as if they are much more better Kenyans than all of us? It is our country.
Ben, is the reading that this may be the ego of push and pull, that this seemingly is becoming two governments, for the lack of a better words, at a loggerhead, clearly coming out?
I wouldn't look at it as if it is a demonstration or we have two governments that are coming up. What we have here is specific individuals, not even the institutions, specific individuals who have very little regard, if any, for the rule of law, individuals who have very little understanding of their roles and their responsibilities in their respective positions, specific individuals who thrive on unnecessary controversies. I don't know whether they attain any accolades by refusing to do what they are paid to do, which is very unfortunate, because at the bottom of it, you will find that we are struggling with a case of individuals who don't really care about what happens as long as they get their way. And that is not how governments work. So whether it is from the county governments or from the national government or from the legislature arm, it is the same mindset. We have developed over a very long period of time a culture whereby we have no regard whatsoever, or even no respect for what at all for institutions. That is only what is needed. Let people just agree we have a responsibility, and this mandate is bigger than any of us individually. And then we can be able, as I indicated actually, this is a conversation that can be concluded in less than half an hour. And we have a solution, and this country moves forward. But now, today, the Senate says this, then tomorrow the MPs have said this, then the governors the following week have said this, then the president said that. We are taking ourselves in circles and at the expense of critical services. And believe you me, as it stands actually, and this is what I would use to appeal to the leadership of this country, from the president up to the governors and the senators and all. Mwananchi out there is suffering, and Wanjiku out there is struggling. Basic services are becoming a mirage to a majority of Kenyans. So it will be important.
Then we will talk of the trickle-down effect of the cashless counties to the common Mwananchi a little bit later. If you, as you posit, say then that this can be solved in less than 30 minutes.
Yes.
Why seemingly is it taking longer than that then?
It is just the basic ego battles that are of no value to anybody. Believe you me, even for that standoff for the last 2 months, if you were to ask either the National Assembly or even the Senate or the Council of Governors or even the Treasury to write down for you what they have achieved in that 2 months, on a piece of paper like this, it is not a report that can even be 2 paragraphs. So it means we have wasted a whole 2 months discussing and achieving nothing. That's how I'll sum it up.
Fair enough. The governors went to the Supreme Court, Kevin seeking an advisory opinion of the Supreme Court. In his opinion, the Chief Justice, who is the president of the judiciary, called for a mediation committee between the two houses. The case will be mentioned on the 16th of September. The very same day, the governors say if we won't have a way forward on it, we will see a shutdown, a total shutdown in the counties. Do you see the two houses putting their heads together and beating this deadline?
Of course, yes, in my view, optimistically, with the intervention of His Excellency the President, by virtue of course, protecting his legacy. But remember that we're also talking about separation of powers, the principle of separation of powers for leadership and governance, where really the Supreme Court judiciary may have very little to do. In fact, the bench was just narrating to us what we already know. But I liked certain things which they said, in the sense that, one, as Kenyans, we must be able to have an opportunity to sit and agree over our issues, which is why I like the task that the Parliament, National Assembly, and the Senate was given, like go back and sit. Number two, they advised that by constitution, that then Treasury is mandated to get money from consolidated fund and fill in or chip in to what is already a gap. But remember that Council of Governors already came up and said, by the way, that was a good advisory. However, we have issues, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they raised around 4 to 6, if not 6 issues about that. And one of that was that, one, the resources that the Supreme Court was talking about, they needed an interpretation in terms of which ones are you talking about. Is it audited accounts for 2018, 2019, or is it 2016, 2017? Because that really is a gap that needs to be looked at. Remember that we also, this conversation is not just taking place in a vacuum. There are other underpinning factors. For example, the economic growth of this country, the GDP, gross domestic product, the degree of totality of resources that counties are generating to be able to send it back to national government, to add to treasury, and then it is appropriated effectively to county governments, against the work that each and every Kenyan is doing to be able to get money into their pockets, into their businesses, and everything else, to be taxed by KRA, and then again going back to county government. So we are talking about a conversation that really has to take place not just within National Assembly and the Senate, but a conversation that all Kenyans need to be part and parcel of.
And on that point of all Kenyans, is it not a contradiction that Kenyans are told to pay tax? And when this tax is collected, we have houses that are disagreeing on how this tax will be used. At the end of the day, you are paying for something that you are not getting.
Actually, Abu Bakr, that brings in a very interesting dimension. It's a conversation my friends and I had the other week. You see, at the moment, despite the commitment by the president to fight corruption, evidence is coming out that there are many individuals who have deliberately been either refusing to declare correctly what they owe to KRA, or people who have been colluding with individuals within KRA to sabotage tax processes. What this means is, you know, that there are primary responsibilities of any government, especially on fundamental areas like education, like security, like healthcare. What the government has continuously done is to deprive Kenyans of these critical services, so that you, as Abu Bakr, if you are the proprietor of a facility like this, you'll pay your taxes diligently, but still you have to dig deeper into your pocket to educate your children, because the public education system has completely failed. You have to dig deeper to take care of yourself when you fall ill, because our public healthcare system has completely collapsed. And you still have to dig deeper to invest in security, because the public security system has failed to address the needs of Kenyans.
Ben,
So
why not credit the reforms that we have had?
I am not refuting, but you see, the reality tells a different story. The reality on the ground tells you a different story. Like for the last, I want to give you a basic analysis. Tell me the last time we had a public primary school constructed in Nairobi for the last 30 years. One, not 5. Just one public primary school. Those are realities. You know, you find we have not been able to utilize these taxes to match the population needs. That's why we end up we end up pushing ourselves into the kind of a quagmire we are into.
Which Ben was my question.
Yes.
If the utilization of these taxes, an entire question on its own, why fight over its collection
now, the
before
issue
you
here
even
is,
get to it?
The issue here is, and it takes me back to what I just stated a few moments ago. We have individuals who are paid by Kenyan taxpayers who deliberately refuse to do what they are paid to do. Because to them, this contest about revenue, about allocations, and about the utilization of taxes has never occurred to them that it is about the people of Kenya. It is always about what are we getting out of it.
And these
To them, they are
individuals
both,
to you
like,
are elected
I'll give you
individuals, sir?
Yes, I'll give you a scenario. Like we have many, you have seen many cases whereby governors or members of the National Assembly or even senators cannot even see eye to eye with their governors in the local village, because their bother is that this guy has too much money. It is not the governor's money. This is public money. This is money for those residents who the MPs or the senators represent. But now, here they are committed to try to frustrate the same governors because of myopic political contests. In 2022 will be here, and all of them will be lumped together in the event the county governments fail. It becomes easy for Mwananchi to see that we are not able to achieve. We send you to Nairobi to defend us and to negotiate for us, but you worked against us. That would be the narrative.
Ben, I won't ask you the specifics of the individuals whom you twice alluded to, which you have a right not to answer.
Yes.
But for the purpose of curiosity, these individuals you think are elected?
Yes, they are elected leaders. Yes, they are elected leaders.
And they are
but
the
they
ones you
deliberately,
think...
yes, they are the ones actually who deliberately refuse to do what their business has been always to increase their salaries and allowances in parliament, and creating even nocturnal allowances. I don't know for what. At the expense of Wanjiku. That culture really must come to an end.
Yes. Kevin, on the question of allocation, how much is political misunderstandings at the county levels? If you are not a governor's favorite, if you are not an MP's favorite, for instance, how much is that attitude having an impact of?
I think there is, other than just the opportunity to be a good leader and to be a good steward, there is no opportunity for that kind of narrative. Why? Because if we were to go to look at things ideally in the manner in which they are supposed to be, the way in which devolution envisioned for people to benefit is very open, transparent, accountable. Why? Because we have the county integrated development plans, for which is expected that county governments will undertake public participation processes for citizens to participate and even share what they want to, to see in that project, in the plan, and ultimately what goes into the annual development plans, which then is put into the budget, where now also still the citizens have an opportunity to be called upon to participate effectively, and then it goes back to the county assembly and the circle continues. Unfortunately, that ideal
procedures before you even continue that have been questioned for the lack of public participation.
Exactly, which is where I was headed to. So that then the County Governments Act gives the citizens an opportunity to petition the processes. So if you submit a document where my voice was not heard, and the things I said to you as a governor or as a chief officer or as a county waziri wa county CEC did not make sense, then I can go and petition that process. Now, we waste too much time in that particular process as opposed to time which is supposed to be invested in ensuring that services are delivered to the people, and which is where the problem now starts between executive and county assemblies at the county government level, where then, depending on how much allegiance you will pledge to His Excellency the Governor, then as much resources will go to your ward. Depending on how much chaotic you will be in asking many questions, you will be told, wewe ngoja mpaka ile siku utakapokuwa governor.
And could that be the genesis as to why some member of parliament, now that Ben doesn't want to mention, some member of parliament are vehemently opposing the amount to be increased?
Precisely, and that is really just the beginning of all these conversations, because we already dealt with the political question, which is really about officers, who wants to be governor, who wants to be senator, who wants to be MCA, who wants to be all that. But remember that as much as that is playing at that level, there is the person who is really being affected, and that is the person that you expect to wake up at 2:30 after 5 years to go and queue and vote for you. Remember, that is the person that before you get into this helicopter to go to the village will volunteer to take a bicycle or a boda boda to carry your mom who has suddenly collapsed at a market center and is rushing her to some health facility where you've actually refused to ensure that resources are appropriated for that particular facility to benefit, so that your mom doesn't have to cost you a flight, 500,000 shillings to hire a helicopter from Nairobi to wherever you want to go to just, ensure that services or healthcare is given to your mother. So that's why, in my view, I look at this as a holistic conversation, which has to be taken off from just the senators and the members of National Assembly. But also remember that there is going to be a day when all these governors will not be governors. Because by this constitution, you can only be a governor for 10 years. There is going to be a day when senators...
Of 2 terms, if you win the 2 terms.
Exactly.
Is it therefore my understanding that internal political bickerings in the counties could as well be having a hand in as far as this crisis is concerned?
I think just before Mulwa comes in, the manner in which, again, the institutions operate, whether it's MCAs and governors, they are very little, because MCAs, to appropriate a county government budget, they have to wait for the National Assembly's appropriation bill to be passed to give them effect. So the much they can do down there is to lobby, to keep bootlicking for those who want to go that way, keep singing the song of a governor, and maybe the few people, the ones we keep saying are cartels, who want to please the governor to ensure that services or certain projects are taken to the counties.
The same question, Ben. Could it be that the political bickerings in these counties could as well be a reason for the standoff?
There has been a lot of push and pull within all counties. As we indicated, we must agree that the national government has been here for the last 56 years. Counties have been here with us for the last 6 years now. Actually, it's going to the 7th. Yeah. So there was bound to be challenges. There was bound to be problems. There was also bound to be misunderstanding of the responsibilities. There are people who initially took off on a very unfortunate tangent, where they were convinced that the resources that have been sent to their villages, that is in the form of county governments, were there to be eaten. But now we must be able to agree that the recent onslaught, especially against corruption, and on this we must be able to laud the president, is actually changing the narrative on the ground. You remember in the build-up to the Ugenya by-elections, the Siaya governor was on record saying that if the people of Ugenya do not toe the party line, then he's going to deny them development. This is the same irresponsibility I've continued to insist that there are individuals who do not understand the role of their offices or their functions in their particular offices. Because it is not the governor even to decide who gets what. It is supposed to be a guided process, as Kevin is putting, from the basis of the CIDP to we have a county assembly and all that. What we have is people who have no respect for institutions. So even at this particular juncture, as we talk about the wrangles within the counties, those ones are bound to be there. And you'll be surprised, actually. Initially, when county governments came into place in 2013, there was a lot of chaos. But today, so many counties have actually been able to streamline their operations and get so many things right. It is actually no longer quite a concern. What is there is just cases of rampant corruption here and there. My question would be, these people who are insisting on not allocating more resources to counties, why would we punish the governors who have been getting it right for the last couple of years just because there are a few elements who have mismanaged their resources? There are institutions, again, anchored on the law that should be able to be dealing with those who are stealing or those who are misappropriating resources.
Could it be from the view of those who are denying the county's money? No, could it be from their own perspective that if these institutions are not doing their work, then deny the money rather than being mismanaged?
You see, all those allegations or all those statements being issued by quarters who feel that the counties have not been utilizing their resources appropriately, treating us to feelings. You cannot run a government based on feelings and emotions. If you are convinced that your governor, as a member of parliament or as a member of the Senate, that your governor is misappropriating resources, there are channels of being able to address that. So we cannot bring in funny emotions to deny or to remove ourselves from the responsibility of doing what we are required to do by the law. Now, when we talk about misappropriation, escalate those cases, as the president even one time challenged Kenyans. If you have reports that your governor is misusing reports, Karura Forest is just across here. Go pay a visit to Kinoti.
Fair enough.
That's
Kevin,
the basic, yes.
Kevin, I remember the first time, and that probably is the last time the president weighed on this, was during the opening of the Bidco Industrial Park in Ruiru. Yes. And he publicly said, and this was a challenge to the governors, use what you have, let's see the deficiency, then we can have a discussion. What is wrong in telling the counties use what you have?
You see, counties have nothing. Because I meant to probably what the president insinuated was use what we have already allocated. Because as it is right now, counties have nothing. There's nothing.
Let's flip that then. Yeah. Use what has already been allocated.
Which now has a problem. Because, and that's the problem we keep drumming up, that the country moved from 2016 to 2019 is 3 years. The monies that you want to allocate to us are monies that are appropriating what we looked at 3 years ago.
Yes.
Lakini kwa kweli hata scratch card imeongezeka bei. Even unga ya ugali imeongezeka bei. Even cost of living really has moved, and it is His Excellency the President that keeps saying this every May 1st, you know, when he's giving the Labor Day celebration speech. So what this therefore means is that county governments, through the Council of Governors and the senators, are saying, look at the changes that have taken place. But on the other hand, what I would have expected His Excellency the President to probably push the governors to be able to show is how much have you on-sourced? What is the revenue that you have collected? Because at the county levels, we have levies that counties have been mandated by Schedule 4 of this wonderful constitution to be able to collect from people. We have land rates, which we see them advertising every day, you know, including waivers, which of course by law they can be able to give to good investors. Yes. We have licenses. Every single day mamambogas are being asked to pay 20 shillings, 100 shillings, depending on which county you come from. Sometimes you see lorries moving from one county to the other carrying vegetables. There is monies which they are being, which they pay.
And Kevin, in your own opinion, do you think the county governments are maximizing those opportunities?
They are not, because again at County Governance Watch, where I come from, we have done an analysis 2014-2015 on what particular unique assets that counties have. For example, if you go to Kisii County, there are young people who are just by the roadside who are carving stones, and you know, they are making interesting things out of just locally available pieces of land, you know, from their localities. Why can't the county governments agree with them and say, what is it that you can be able to do? Every day we see people opening hospitals, people are putting together kiosks, people are licensing borders to go and ride. How about if we looked at the value for money and the value addition for mega projects? Today, Abu, we are talking about economic, what are they called? Economic zones. For example, we are talking about Lake Region Economic Development, basically regional blocks for counties. Why can't we consider looking at if what would be the value add for 6 counties to come together and have a huge manufacturing farm and see how many young people would be employed, what amount of resources would be generated from that particular opportunity, what amount of exports, you know, to other parts of the world, and the amount of revenue that would come to those counties, and then we begin to look at how we divide those monies among ourselves.
Fair enough.
As you cut me short, there is a time when the chair of the Council of Governors himself said, I think it's a month ago, and it was reported on one of the newspapers, that he's been able to collect in 1 year more than what he receives from National Treasury in terms of on-source revenue. Why can't counties begin to have that kind of conversation and then see what they can be able to pick from their own sources?
Ben, let me be the devil's advocate in this. If this is the amount that has been allocated, better have them than none, better have them than shut down the counties.
Yes.
What is the problem with that narrative?
There is a huge problem because consistently, and perhaps Kevin will agree with me, consistently there has been a lot of dishonesty coming from the National Treasury when it comes to the actual disbursement of allocations to counties. You'll be surprised, as we are speaking today, the Treasury did not actually allocate or did not actually disburse the complete allocations for the counties for the financial year 2018-2019. That's the truth. I think there's a deficit of about 15, 20. Yes. There's a deficit of about 15-20%. So that tells that the problem is not the counties. That the problem is not actually that the counties are mismanaging resources. And that's why I'm still insisting that the president needs to be removed from this conversation, because the same way we should be challenging governors in terms of what they have been able to do with their resources that have been allocated to them. Is the same way we should also, the National Assembly should be asking the president, what have you achieved with the over 10 trillion shillings that your administration has utilized for the last, like now we have a budget of about 3.1 trillion. You see, we must demystify this for Kenyans to stop thinking, because there's a funny narrative that has been built by individuals, the national gatekeepers.
Which you are making reference to time and again in this discussion.
These individuals thrive on propaganda to continue misleading Wanjiku. As we are speaking, out of the 3.1 trillion shillings proposed for this financial year, county governments, even if we were to go with the 316 billion that the National Assembly is proposing or stuck at, it leaves Ukuru Yatani now at the National Treasury with a whooping excess of 2.7 trillion shillings. So the problem is not the counties. The problem is the dishonesty, because in the last financial year alone, as I've indicated, eventually I think counties, out of the, initially it was supposed to be about 310 billion. Counties only received about 278 billion shillings. That deficit, even the Treasury is not explaining why they were not able to remit. Again, I want to challenge a position that Ken has taken in terms of the president needs to challenge county governments to show or demonstrate what they have been able to generate on their own. Again, it is not the business of the president.
It's not, but we earlier on said, yes, there are institutions, but we earlier on said that if he is the leader of a party that the two house leaders come from, surely he must have a certain common responsibility.
In my view, on the same position, actually, the president should be battling with the shortages that his own administration is falling into in terms of revenue collection. That is what he should be focusing on, because at the wholesome level, he is the president of the republic. So it is his business to ensure that even the institutions that are under his executive arm are adequately functioning to guarantee that devolution is protected and also his Big Four agenda is achieved.
Fair enough, Kevin. If the amounts allocated, often there is a mismatch to the trickle-down effect of the amount that gets to the same counties. If there is a mismatch in that, is there too much pressure then on the counties that really what they are getting is not what they have been allocated for?
Definitely, yes. There is too much pressure, which really generates into the conversation we've had around a bloated wage bill at the county levels. And I think at some point, His Excellency, the President, also alluded to that when he said that, for example, that at the National Police Service, they have hundreds of thousands of officers who are being paid but have never showed up to work. Now, there is, in my view, a complete audit of devolution which really needs to be undertaken. And the only biggest problem that I think we are facing is because initially as devolution was coming in, we had an institution which was then called the Transition Authority, for whose I doubt whether even the report of their findings has ever been made public or whether it's ever been published. But I think we really need to once again get back and begin to ask ourselves, yes, we are moving on effectively and there is all this drama about a referendum. What does this mean as we seek to audit the Constitution? And part of that audit, in my view, also needs to look at auditing devolution. And if you, as from what we said at the beginning of this conversation, devolution has made tremendous changes in the lives of Kenyans all over this country. And that therefore needs to move into even auditing the role of the institution, so that we look at, for example, when CRA says something, why is it so difficult for National Treasury to follow it? And once we have already agreed on that, then why is it so difficult for National Assembly and the and the Senate to also have a common position over what really matters to Kenyans, which is devolution? And of course, part of that would be to look at why is it so difficult even for governors to agree with the National Assembly? Because I'm so perplexed at the paradox that we have seen between between the Senate and the Council of Governors, because initially the Senate and the Council of Governors never used to see eye to eye.
Fair enough. And at the height of the promulgation of Kenya's 2010 Constitution, counties or the devolved system of governance was presented as though it was the silver bullet that was going to cure all the problems Kenya had. Close to a decade later, we are 1 year shy of a decade. It seemingly hasn't.
In my view, I think that would be a harsh assessment of what devolution has been able to achieve. There is one fundamental issue also that must be addressed. And again, this falls under the institutions that are supposed to be oversighting the counties, from the Commission for Revenue Allocation, the Control of Budgets, the Auditor General, and the Senate in terms of oversighting counties. There has been a lot of wastage at the counties. You saw, like, is it the last financial year they spent in excess of 11 billion shillings on local travel, where we have MCS from Nakuru just traveling to Nairobi, you have MCS from Nairobi traveling to Mombasa
and abroad as well.
Yeah, from Siaya to Busia and back.
From Siaya to the Busia border and come back. And you see, that wastage is there, but gradually, because of now the ongoing onslaught against corruption, I think now it is pumping sense into individuals that you can't just squander resources. But I want also to mention something that was a basis. Like Kevin, you mentioned when the president told us that they had been able to bust ghost workers within the National Police Service. Up to this day, I've not seen the IG come to us and tell us, here are the 15 fellas who are working for us who did not exist. So in my view, that was just an exercise trying to hoodwink Kenyans, or try the same diversionary tactics that you have continued to witness. Like now, this particular standoff, believe you me, it is just a creation for a cover-up of the way the treasury is broke. Now, the National Treasury is struggling to try to raise some syndicated loans. So they're not telling Kenyans the truth. So what happens? Let's create a crisis. Even if this thing was agreed on by the 16th, believe you me, even if this was to be agreed on, there's not going to be any money allocated to the counties until the Treasury has money.
Fair enough, and on that note, we are taking another short break here on Newweek. We'll be back after this break.
Nyumba yetu iko katika sehemu ya Lindi. Lindi ni katikati mwa Kibera slum. Ukitoka Katwekere utapass through Kisumu ndogo ndio ufike hapa Lindi. Pia kuna pahali pengine kama Darajani, Kisumu ndogo, High Rise, Soweto. Tunapenda Kibera kwa sababu hapa ndio mahali tumezaliwa, tunalelewa hapa, tunaishi hapa na wazazi wetu, tunakula hapa. Maisha huku Kibera ni mazuri, pia ni matamu. Cha muhimu tu ni wewe uamke mapema asubuhi, ujipange, ukijua kile ambacho utafanya hiyo siku ni sawa, kwa sababu siku ikienda hivyo imeenda. Kila siku kwangu ni special. Nimefurahia sana kwa mwanahabari mdogo. Hii ni opportunity kubwa sana kwangu. Napata fursa ya kutoa hadithi yangu, pia kutoa hadithi ya Kibera kwa sababu sisi ndo tunaishi huku, sisi ndo tunaielewa. Mvua ilikuadhiri kivipi?
Kuja ghafla. Sasa kidogo ndio ngaona maji ikatoa tu sana kwa mkono shwe.
Lazima tuseme hadithi ya ukweli. Jina langu ni Sylvia Dhiambo na hii ni TV47.
Elimu bila shaka ni nguzo maalum katika makuzi ya jamii. Hapa tunaangazia mtaala wa masomo, mitindo tofauti ya masomo pamoja na changamoto zinazoikumba sekta hii.
Okay, they're here taking care of, these children. Who's taking care of their children?
Elimu, mafunzo, mwongozo, maendeleo, yote haya katika kipindi hiki cha elimu na walimu.
uhuru, sheria na haki ni vipengee muhimu katika maisha ya kila siku.
Na iwapo serikali itafanikiwa katika makuzi ya jamii iliyo na mwelekeo, basi sharti sheria hizo zifuatwe.
Na kwa sababu sheria ni msumeno kukata mbele na nyuma, ni vyema kufahamu tungo hizi.
Siku zote jambo usilolijua ni kama usiku wa giza.
Ungana nami Clifford Ndubi.
Nami Andreen Kilemi.
Kila siku ya Jumatatu saa 1 jioni tukidonoa na kuchanganua sheria hizi
zinazotudhibiti.
Welcome back to Newweek. Thank you for staying with us. And as earlier promised, your opinion counts. So we asked you to use the hashtag TV47 Newweek and to read some of your feedback. Hebrews on Twitter says Kenyans are paying taxes that the two houses cannot allocate the money well for maximization. Someone else on Twitter says basic services is becoming a mirage to the common mwananchi. Those are two among the many feedback that we are getting here on Twitter. Remember, you can call us in on the number on your screen and be part of this discussion. At the heart of it is you, the common mwananchi, you, the viewer, and the audience of TV47. Call in and share with us your thoughts. Gentlemen, more than the amount and the figures quoted and ballooned, if not around, at the heart of this dispute, seemingly from an outsider's point of view, from someone who reads the disputes, is the duplication of roles and what really the two houses need to be doing in as far as the onset of the constitutional clarification of their roles are. Is it a case of the two houses trying to figure out who has bigger muscles than the other equally?
Actually, Abubakar, you'll be surprised that that particular stalemate we are experiencing was occasioned by the same, most of those individuals are still in parliament in one way or the other. When they tore down the actual proposals that were contained in the Bomas draft when they went to Naivasha. That's why a majority of those who are in parliament up to 2012 ran or rushed to become senators. Because in their minds, the last time they checked, they had created a powerful Senate. Then they forgot that actually they watered down that Senate when they went to Naivasha. That particular process was so quickly mashed up together, there wasn't adequate time to distinguish the specific roles of each of these houses. It was purely driven by individual or selfish agenda that had nothing to do with the roles of the houses. So now senators went to parliament and realized, wait a minute, actually we are almost like, we almost exist in the periphery of legislation in this country. And by that's the reality. So some of the positions that the National Assembly takes are anchored on the law. The senators are only, as I indicated, are only trying to bring feelings that because elsewhere in the world, the Senate is supposed to be superior. So even now, around here, they begin to feel superior. Yet that is not what the law has created.
Fair enough. Let me get Kevin to the discussion as well. Kevin, there are three things that have been at the heart of the row between the two houses. One, the row has been hinged on who should pass money bills, approve nominees for state appointment, and summoning of officers to answer to queries. We had an instance where Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i, while appearing before the Parliament, said the two houses can't be summoning us every day, we have work to do. Given that the Constitution clarifies their roles, are these roles of one house stepping into another house's roles?
Quite unfortunately, yes. And it's because sometimes, again, it's the political sideshows in my view. because you'll have a scenario where, for example, one house vets an officer, and the other house is to approve. And then you ask yourself, so what is all this? But fundamentally to say is that our constitution did not envision this kind of challenges. And that is why many times we have either amendments or we have policies or we have opportunities to make things right. But remember that there are certain fundamental things that state officers and public officers are supposed to look at. And one of those things, in my view, is, for example, a framework called Mwongozo, which is really driven or pulled up from National Values and Principles, Chapter 6, Article 10 of our Constitution. When you are seated there as the chair of that particular committee, what is your sole responsibility as a Kenyan citizen, one? And then two, the patriotic thing to do. And then three, the honorable member who is seated at either the National Assembly or at the Senate. And that is why some of these issues that we are talking about really need to be reflective moments for the people that we call our leaders. Because sometimes I am of the view that they are unnecessary, they are uncalled for, and they are not supposed to be happening the way they are happening, because it is the same people who voted for them in office who are today suffering because of the choices and the decisions that they are making. So then, Abu, what then presents, in my view, is what is the gap? And how can we be able to seal it or to deal with it? And I think as a country, we have many opportunities to deal with our challenges. And these challenges really are not supposed to be ones that then make Kenyans feel so disenfranchised, disencouraged, and so disillusioned about being Kenyans. And it is because of the reflective nature of the people that we have given the responsibility to stand at the front. There are the people that stand there, and when there is a gun that has been pointed against them, they slip off or they bend over, and then it is the people whom they are supposed to be protecting who then get hurt.
And if we are to reverse that, the very same people who may the country look as though it's in a crisis situation, were elected by the people who are going through these problems.
But it is because you have specific functions that you are supposed to go through. If I was in a civic education or a public education forum, I would have had the opportunity to do PowerPoint presentations and to open the Constitution. So from chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9, up to chapter 11, when we talk about the Constitution, is purely about roles of the legislature, the role of the county governments, the role of the judiciary, the law. Even within the legislature, you have the role of the Senate and also the role of the National Assembly. So whether it is money bill or it is whatever bill, I don't think it is necessary for us to put the lives of Kenyans at the forefront. What needs to happen is that even at the House itself, they have standing orders. They have opportunities to have both official and unofficial conversations and dialogues. Whether it is a speaker's Kamukunji, raise your concerns at that particular point. The only unfortunate thing, I think, is because we have not had very bold legislatures who will stand and say, on this one, I disagree with the deputy president. On this one, I agree with this excellent
irrespective of whether you come from the party
so
of the
they want
president
to play games to be seen to be liking a point, even when it doesn't make sense for many Kenyans.
On the question of the houses, will it be too ideal then to say that the two houses have literally the same power?
No.
You assume that they have the same power?
No, assuming is one thing, but you see, the law is usually very categorical. As I indicated, most of this can be feelings or emotions, but they are not anchored in law. The reality is the Constitution specifically outlines the roles of the National Assembly and the roles of the Senate. What we are witnessing are individuals, and unfortunately a majority of the individuals we have in Parliament are lawyers. What is unfortunate is that we have people who are even refusing just to read law that is written in very plain English and in simple sentences. Most of these creations are just about, essentially, you see, like we have seen many senators visiting other countries, like be it Australia, be it the US, be it wherever. So they come back feeling that they are supposed to be the ones who are superior, but that is not the reality in the law. That's why even in the event of the absence of the president and the deputy president, the Constitution bestows the Speaker of the National Assembly to be the third in command and not the Speaker of the Senate. So right now there are two distinct things here they must not mix up. Let them work with the law as it is to ensure that what is supposed to be done is done. Then in the event they are dissatisfied with the provisions of the Constitution, right now we have Punguza Mzigo doing rounds across the country. We have BBI coming up. Hata nilisikia kuna ingine ondoa gharama. Let now also senators participate or even initiate their own process, whereby now they can escalate the Senate to be specifically the upper house. Then these kinds of conflict by they will never exist. But
will put in one house over another in terms of power solve such crisis?
Yes.
To an extent, no, because we really have to negotiate. We have to find non-partisan mediators. We have to have an opportunity for dialogue. And you see, the beauty of this is that the Constitution, and which is why initially I was raising the paradox of Council of Governors and Senators, swinging on one side, because historically, from devolution, they've been quite averse to each other, where senators looked at governors as our enemies, because then, again, they are there to protect the interests of the counties, and that really needs to be the point of departure for both National Assembly and the Senate, because then we are talking interest of counties. So what is the interest of the National Assembly in the interest of counties? And then what is the interest of the Senate in the interest of counties? And it is in, of course, we are talking about money, but if you were to pull that from their hands and put it to the citizens, it would be service delivery. And if you went around and we have asked people what this really means to them, they're saying, sisi tunataka tu tufanyiwe kazi. We just want markets, we want our roads, we want health facilities, but you come to Nairobi, the conversation is about money. It doesn't have to be like that in my view.
Fair enough. In a country where there is a cry on the over-representation or otherwise, that the number of representatives we have is skyrocketing. Having two such houses that barely agree on little more than their mutual dislike and the power struggles that we see between them. From a layman's perspective, if one is to assume, why not scrap one? Will it be...
Well, again, that is a constitutional process. We can't just wake up tomorrow
and decide
and start feeling that because we are disappointed by the National Assembly or we are disappointed by the Senate, they don't exist. That's a constitutional process. But now the reality is, as a country, we are overrepresented, and it is always demonstrated, especially when there is house business. You'd be surprised. At any one given time, when there is debate, especially in the Senate, you'll always find at least there is attendance of anything between 60 and even up to 90% at any one given time. On the flip side, at any one given time when there is debate in the National Assembly, where we have 349 Kenyans sitting there, most of the times you'll see 30 to 40 members. That's a very tiny percentage, whereby we have a whole excess of 300 members who essentially never find time. And it is on record. We have second-term MPs today. Some of them who are very loud nowadays, especially in funerals and rallies, who have never uttered a word since 2013 in Parliament. So what that tells you...
There is an annual report to that effect. There is an annual report of the contributions of each member of Parliament in the House.
What that means, just a moment, Abubakar, what that means is that in that particular framework, even themselves, they are in agreement that they don't need all of them there to be able to do the little work. It can be done by 30 or 40 guys. So as we proceed, and it's my hope, because Kenyans are waiting for the BBI report and we already know what Punguza Mzigo wants. Kenyans now, because we are auditing the Constitution, we must be able to agree, just the same narrative that was running before we promulgated it, that 80% was good and there was some 20% that needed to be fixed. Perhaps this is part of the 20% that needs to be sorted out so that now we can move on as a country.
Fair enough. The case before the Supreme Court will be mentioned on the 16th of September, coincidentally the day the Council of Governors announced as the start of a shutdown if this will not be resolved. To a Kenyan who may be wondering what a shutdown, we hear of the American shutdown. For a Kenyan who may be wondering what county's shutdown will look like, Kevin, in a minute, how will that look like?
Of course, service delivery is not happening. We are going back to where we were many years back, almost 54 or so years ago. It therefore means that the voices of the citizens to make decisions on things that matter to them at the county level is of course messed up. It means that decisions on resource allocation for services to be delivered by the citizens through an open public participation process is stifled. It means that basically we are on our own, really. Yeah, it means that we are on our own.
And we, in that context, meaning the common man.
Yes, the common man.
Wanjiku will be suffering, actually.
The same question, Ben?
Yes. This shutdown, actually, the primary people will be hit the most, the common 190. As we have continued to see, we have parliamentarians who have a medical cover of up to 10 million shillings. So if tomorrow, say Mama Lucy Hospital ceases to work, or say Pumwani Hospital, any other local dispensary in any village, it is not the members of parliament or the senators who will suffer. If early childhood education centers, which are under the county governments, cease to work in 2 weeks' time, it is not their children who go to and who study the British curriculum in private schools who will suffer. It is the common 190 Wanjiku. So that's why it is really important for sobriety to take charge in this particular case. It's not so much about who ultimately comes out as the winner. It is about are we arriving at a solution that is a win-win for every Kenyan. As they continue haggling, let them remember that there are women who are due to deliver on the 17th or the night of the 16th. In the event they don't find nurses in public hospitals, that means there's a chance somebody is going to die. It's not worth the haggling that we are being treated.
Kevin, you have Kenya's 2010 constitution. A constitution whose preamble is we the people.
Yes, yes.
Just for purpose of curiosity, what is the role of the citizen in solving such a crisis?
In solving such a crisis, of course, we have the opportunity to do maandamano-nize, and hug on the streets and be ready to receive tear gases and all that, which is also unfortunate, because then the spirit of petitioning and canvassing as citizens is then messed up. But I think that the citizens, by virtue of the sovereignty of the people, because it can be exercised either directly or indirectly. Indirectly by virtue of putting in office competent people who are then supposed to take decisions, make decisions and take certain actions on behalf of the people. We don't have to, in the spirit of that sovereignty, allow Kenyans to get to that level of disillusionment, where we are saying, by the way, how come imepita hawa tu wote ikatufikia? We really don't have to leave it to get to that point, which is why, yes, my friend Ben says it doesn't have to call for the president, but this constitution gives the president the opportunity now to make a pronouncement on this matter, because he is a person who is the first citizen, Kenyan #1. Does he want a situation where Kenyans will be asking, by the way, is our president competent? How about the people who sit around him? Is it that they cannot effectively discharge the opportunity?
And for the 2 months that the row has existed, the back and forth, the pull and push, the mediation from the LSK, which failed, the mediation now committee called by the Supreme Court, which will give its verdict on the 16th based on the disagreement or otherwise. Why would the president be silent in all those procedures?
Ceteris paribus, whether broke or not broke, whether resources are there or not, His Excellency the President must, and I like his silence for now, because I'm sure that probably he was told, by the way, that statement that you made was off. You don't go and tell people, chukueni, even if it is your son in the house, amekuja akasema, dadi mami, niko na hii shida, na hii ndio niko nayo. You don't tell that little kid, I've already given you electricity, I've given you ugali, eat it, you know. There could be a reason. Maybe when I eat that ugali, I have ulcerations, maybe I, puke, and I have certain things that are not working very well within my system. Have an opportunity to listen, which is why I'm frustrated around and about the fact that the summit has many times failed to take place. That is the sitting between the Council of Governors and His Excellency the President. That sitting really needs to happen, because then it is at that point that you have discussions around serious issues like this one. Number 2 is that Jubilee is a ruling party, and we have a way in which National Assembly, through its leadership, and then the Senate, through its leadership, really borrow from what's happening from the ruling party. So the ruling party as Jubilee also needs to call its house to order, consider a sitting and ask yourselves, do we want a scenario where our majority leaders are pulling from left, right, and center? Exactly. The speakers of both houses are Jubilee speakers. They must have an opportunity to also sit so that then this narrative around number one, the president, and number two is a deputy, not seeing eye to eye, is also not repeatedly seen in other structures.
Fair enough, Kevin, and I think we alluded to that point a little bit earlier and discussed it, exhausted on it. Yes. Ben, if the counties are to have their way and the allocations are made as per their request, and this impasse is solved by that, does that also guarantee an equal proportion of development in as far as the amount allocated is concerned?
It does not essentially guarantee an equal or direct translation to development. As I've indicated, there has been a major problem with the way counties have been allocating their resources, a majority of whom, like I remember, if you look through the control of budgets reports, you'll be surprised, like immediately after the 2017 elections, there are counties that, despite actual or physical allocations to their accounts, there are counties that for a period of like 3 months didn't spend even a penny on development. Now that is a totally different issue. Let the money be allocated. Then let's also review their roles. Those who are looting the money, let us see the DCI and Kinoti and these Kamata boys holding holding these guys to court. But in the meantime, let the right thing be done. The right thing as it is now is to end this stalemate and ensure that the resources that are due to the counties are allocated.
And in the event that the stalemate ends and the counties are allocated the amount they have requested and they are demanding for, it's more than a request now.
Yes.
Will it be fair to hinge that on development? That is what I was asking.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely the right of the taxpayers to ensure that the funds actually go to what they are being allocated for. And more importantly, as I indicate, because we have to create this distinction, it will not be the responsibility of the Senate to oversee that those resources are utilized exactly as they are supposed to be. Just the same way, the same question should be posed to the national government. Now, we allocated you this 2.7 trillion shillings. Because we know we are now uptight in terms of resources, let's get value also for money from the national and the county, because this has to be a holistic conversation. Let it not look like it's skewed towards a particular section, because there is a common failure on leadership from both at the national level and the county level.
As we finalize and conclude this discussion, Kevin, the fight against corruption, at least the fight has seemingly been in the headlines. The question of equally devolving corruption has been noted in this discussion. Has corruption, as the resources are, also been devolved?
That's quite a difficult question, but I would say yes. Partly because we have seen some activity in certain counties. Some summons have been given to certain governors, both by the Senate, and also activity at the judiciary, where we have seen governors appearing in court to be able to answer. And all these have been results of a process from the Office of the Auditor General, unfortunately, which is now vacant because we have Dr. Uko who left office last week, and we have not seen proper processes being put in place to fill that office. So as we talk about corruption at that very level, there is also a sense in which the citizens' capacity to hold their leaders to account must also be built, so that as we invest resources, time, trainings in institutions like ESCC, OAG, COB, control of budget, among others, we need to also put a similar measure on the citizens by helping them to organize, so that they are able to write proper petitions, so that they are able to sit at the shadow, at the county assembly and listen to those conversations, so that they are also able to be allowed to walk into courts and listen to proceedings of some of these corruption cases. But fundamentally to say is also to go into DCI and DPP, so that then we ask ourselves, what are the time frames? Because I am sure that many of us and citizens know that when it comes to the point of arresting people, whether Kamata Thursday or Friday or Saturday, a lot of activity takes place at that particular point. But no one ever comes back and says, by the way, 3 weeks ago, we went into so-and-so's household and we were able to recover this. These issues have been dealt with in this manner, and finally, this is the outcome. There has to be a process where it starts and an opportunity for citizens also to see how it ends.
Fair enough, and as we conclude, Ben, let me give you the last of words. Which way out for the counties?
In my view, I would strongly recommend that the counties stand their ground, because in this context, nobody or no arm of government should be operating at the mercy of the other. And no particular section of government should feel that they are more superior than the other. All of these are people, if we refer back to the preamble of our constitution, all these are people who are enjoying delegated responsibility that was only donated to them by the people of Kenya. So whatever it is that they do must only be guided primarily by that principle. Anything else is sideshows.
Fair enough, and on that point, we will have to end this discussion. Kevin Osido, a governance expert, and Ben Mulwa, a governance expert equally. Gentlemen, many thanks for making time for us.
Thank you.
And for adhering to the role
as
discussion. Thank you so much. Well, that brings us to the end of today's edition of New Week. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Up next is Clifford Ndubi with Matukio Nyanjani. Enjoy the rest of your viewership.